There are 8 million RV owners in the U.S., which is pretty crazy to think about that. But there are fewer than 1,000 dealerships with certified techs. And I brought in an expert today, Curtis Hemmeler of RV Technical Institute, to talk about the technicians, talk about the wages. Welcome, Curtis, to the show.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Appreciate being here.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Now, you prefer Curtis or Kurt?
Curtis Allen means I'm in trouble, so Curtis or Kurt, whichever rolls off, works fine. So thank you for asking. But
I was thinking of a story. I want to start with a story about an RV story. And it goes back to a couple years ago when it was the dead of COVID. And my brother decided that he wanted to move from New York to Florida. Now, but he wasn't going to jump on a plane. He was going to take an RV. So he shows up in this massive RV, and he's like, dude, I don't know, what highways do I go on? What do I avoid? They almost had a near collision just getting down there. But I remember before he went, the RV had an issue. And we struggled to either get it. There was something wrong. I don't know if it was the ignition, something wrong with it. But we couldn't really get anybody to fix it right away. So it was like an extra day or so before he left. And just thinking about this trade, what do the shortages look like in the RV world for technicians?
Sure. Well, I'd like to say that's a unique story that you just told, but unfortunately it's a very common story, and it really is the foundation of why I'm sitting in front of you today, why the industry reached out 6 years ago and said, hey, would you build us a school? We need to train service technicians. The need right now is so tremendous that in 2023, we were the third fastest growing profession in the country. Now, a lot of that was spiked by the COVID, just like your brother. Everybody was getting out and they're going to get on the road and they're going to travel through an RV. But this shortage started way before that, much like all the skilled trades, right? That we were on decades of continued growth in the RV sales. That 8 million was climbing every year. And so just out of the pure retirements of an aging population of technicians combined with a lot of sales of RVs, the RV Technical Institute was founded. And it was a $10 million investment by the industry that came together and said, hey, we want to build a nonprofit school that trains, certifies, and recruits new technicians into the industry. And as I sit here today, 22,000 folks have started or completed school with us.
What is it like to sort of get into the RV world? Because people know about electricians, they know about welders, they know about carpenters. I always say that career exploration into the trades is difficult. When you're in high school, but you have a mechanical ability, you have the technical spark, a lot of times when you're sitting down with a guidance counselor, they're not necessarily picking up on that and saying, hey, you'd be really good as XYZ fill in the trade. And a lot of times they're told, hey, why don't you go to college? But sometimes they bypass this whole trade thing and they go to college, it's not the right path, and they decide it's not right for them. How do people get into knowing about the RV world? Because it just seems like people know about it. They don't necessarily know about how to get started. How does someone get started?
Sure. Yeah. God, I wish I could sit here and tell you I don't know what you're talking about, but I fully know what you're talking about. I'm a living example of that. Growing up in a blue collar world and with the aspirations of becoming or going to college. Not really sure what that is or how but that's what my family said. That's what I was supposed to do. In hindsight, I did start at school, did terrible, earned my 1.7 GPA in the first 6 months, decided to go into the military. And that's where I had my first taste of kind of the trades. I learned how to become a mechanic, and I learned how to fix gasoline and diesel and all these things. And I loved it, and I didn't know I had an aptitude. So you're right. That's part of the struggle is to which one do I go into? What's out there? So one of the things we started at RVTI is to influence to influencers. And so as I sit here before you today, we've talked to either directly or indirectly over 1 million school counselors, trying to educate them about trades because we've been through generations. Our counselors don't know about trades. And so I'm happy to see it's your show and others have influenced that. But getting the school counselors understand there are other paths out there. Now, at RVTI, we actually have 4 levels of progression in our career path. And our first level, we call the inspection level, takes you into a house. So when you think about your house, that's what an RV is. It's a house on wheels. So you have electrical, you have plumbing, you have HVAC systems. And in our first course, we take you through all of those areas in 40 hours. And so I feel, and part of what we've got a couple schools across the country that are going to be launching this, it's an exposure to all these trades because most kids today haven't been exposed to that. So I think getting into it is exploration, as you mentioned, but we're trying to do our part by having this course be it introductory to electrical or plumbing. They may choose to do that path as well.
Well, it's interesting that you were saying that you can go down different paths, even though that you're going into the RV path.
Exactly.
What's sort of the percentage-wise, like age-wise, is it? Because I look at this and I say there's different groups of individuals who want to be in the trades. There's the younger generation who are just coming out of school. There's career changers who are like working in white collar, like my extended family member who was working for Trader Joe's and now wants to be an electrician at 36 with 2 kids.
Sure.
So everybody's got a different path, but a different age range.
Yes.
Are you finding that it's different ages?
Yeah. Traditionally, our industry, I would say, mirrors very closely to all the trades. If you've had to call a tradesman lately, it's hard to find. If you get one, they're either my age, 40s, 50s, 60s, and kind of grew up before the pendulum shifted to going to the traditional route of education, or they might be very young. And so we don't see that any differently in our world. A lot of our technicians right now, over 60% of them, are over the age of 35. But at the same time, we're strategically influencing high schools, things that we mentioned, to get the younger group to be exposed to this because that group is really our future. And so I would say at the current time, most of them look a lot like the same people, male dominant. We have started, there's a organization within the RV industry called the RV Women's Alliance. And this started about 5 years ago where we wanted to focus on bringing more women into the trade. There's a secret out there. They're actually really good at it. I mean, and in fact, their performance on our testing is typically better than our males. And there's a lot of reasons, I think, behind it. They care a lot more sometimes than us males. But we've now partnered with them. We've had hundreds of women going through our class that have become technicians, and they do very well. The unfortunate of the stereotype of skilled trades also we're battling against all the time. We're no different in our world, and I'm glad to see that beginning to lift. Where by having these women's classes, we're giving them the confidence to come in and they do some work and they perform very well. And then the dealerships love having the women on staff. And so, the focus on women, but also diversity. We're also wanting to bring more diversity, folks coming out of inner city and trying to expose them through their high schools, like I said, with a program like Level 1, just so they can see something that maybe they've never seen before, and so.
There's only about 3 or 4% of women who are in the trades, plus or minus. But what's interesting to see just overall about women in the trades, you didn't usually see them because they were obviously on job sites, but today you see them on social media, whether it's welding. I mean, I can name a ton of influencers and a ton of women who I met who've made tremendous amounts of impact out there. A lot of them will give pushback and say it's difficult for women to get into the trades because there's that stereotype of like they're going to be, I don't want to say hazed, but there's comments on the job site because it's predominantly male. When it comes to the RV world, if you have a class coming in, how many women are really coming through a typical class?
It actually it's a little higher than what you just shared. We run no more than 12 to 14 at a class. We keep it small. On the average, 2 will be women in that class. But that's 2 more than we had 4 years ago, where there would be none coming through. And so I do believe this is a combination of organizations like RVWA, our efforts, but also I think the influencers are out there showing that women being successful and that kind of thing. It's going to be a while before it's they are going to be working with males predominantly, so there will be some challenges. And I know that's what RVWA spends a lot of focus on. Yes, the technical piece we teach, but also just how to operate in a man's world per se.
Yeah, because I know that's a barrier to some degree, and that's lifting. That's why I bring
it is. I really, in my years of education, all that, I've worked with auto and diesel and HVAC techs. I've worked my entire life in that, and every year it seems like more and more women are getting into it, which is great. It is absolutely great.
I'm thinking about women, and not necessarily in the RV world, but I think about this person, Jamie McMillan. She's an iron worker up in Canada. She's doing wonderful things of going into schools and speaking to kids. I had the opportunity last year to speak in Paramus, New Jersey at a technical school, and she was there. And just the kids, and she's really dynamic.
Right.
And she's got a great story. She has ADHD, like a lot of stuff that went on in her life. And she says the trades saved her. But just watching her engage with the kids and engaging with the younger generation who we need to get in front of. Mm-hmm. Are you bringing this to schools and getting in front of the younger generation? And what's their take on it?
Sure. No, that is actually a big part of our strategy. My goal personally with the school is to, in the ideal world, I would love it if our level 1 at a minimum was taught at every high school in the country as a evaluation for somebody who whether they've struggled in school or they're just looking for options, to take this and to be exposed to the trades. I would love to see that happen. And I think that in time and the efforts that we're doing, we speak at a lot of the school counselor regional events across the country. We are starting the program in Colorado in the fall at it's called EPIC, the Innovation Lab, which is a Littleton, Colorado school system that has put a lot of money into the trades as well as some other programs. But I think it's, as I've mentioned, I've lived long enough. I started with the DeVry Institute. That's where I got my career started. And they were born out of the fact, Bell and Howe, they weren't getting from the traditional schools what they needed as skill sets for the industry. So DeVry was one of the first to enter into this idea of teaching the skills and the things that you need in the business world without necessarily going the traditional route of education. And I've seen that pendulum once again shift back a little bit to where now it's much heavier. There's a lot more. You turn on the TV. I've watched some great HVAC commercials about how I was in high school and I didn't know where to go. And I got into HVAC, and now I have 120 employees working for me. I mean, those are the successes of trades. And when you get that, I have a 7-year-old granddaughter. I honestly, I want to teach her a route of trades potentially versus the traditional route. Certification, still very important in my mind. Having certification gives you the piece of paper that says, not only did I take this information, but I retained it and I at a level that's high enough to allow me to pass a test. And so it validates what you just learned. And so we are very heavy into the certification of what we do.
Yeah, I mean, that's extremely important. You were talking about kids. I have 2 young kids, an 8-year-old daughter and an 11-year-old son. And I don't push it, but they obviously see what I do, that when you look at AI and you look at what's going on with robots, and it will disrupt all white-collar work.
Yes.
And I dabble a lot in AI, and I see it where it's the next couple of years. I was just having this conversation with my son. Obviously he's 11 and he's got a few years, but at least get him to start thinking of what the world is going to look like in a handful of years.
Sure.
that the trades won't necessarily be disrupted. Now, maybe years down the road, there'll be Elon Musk will have his Oculus, or I forget what the exact name of the robots running around. And
Sure.
I don't think there's going to be Jimmy the plumber who's going to be a robot who's going to get underneath your sink anytime soon or fix your toilet. But just having the conversations early and just my son, I say to him, I said, you can use my tools under supervision. And that he was building something recently for my daughter who wanted something. She was making something. So he was cutting with an electric saw. But, he had the goggles on.
Sure.
He had the
Safety
gloves
first.
on. I was watching him. But just to see him light up, it's a sense of fulfillment because he's doing something for his sister, but also a sense of accomplishment. They actually felt like, he accomplished that project.
I totally get what you're saying. I was just having this conversation with somebody. The trades, something that I love so much about the trades is when you think about no matter what trade that is, you complete a task, the gratification of seeing your work. And when you, especially when it's not just the work you did, so you have that personal gratification, but when you flip the switch on a family air conditioner on an RV out in the middle where they're having a good time, family experiences being made, but the air isn't working, it quickly dampens an experience.
Sure.
But if you're that technician and you fix that family suddenly lights back up. Dad is like, oh, thank God, thank you for doing that because mom was getting really upset. I think that's another thing with the trades that you do a task, you complete it, and you have gratification for yourself as well as you see the gratification for others. And maybe in a white-collar job, you don't have that very often. Not too many meetings have I been a part of where I had that kind of gratification.
There are so many tradespeople, and I love this, is that they're proud of what they built.
Yep.
So when they go over a bridge, right, they go through a tunnel, they look at a building, all these different things, you can say that I built that.
Yep.
And they light up. And it's not, you know what it is? It's not bragging. That's the wrong word. It's just this satisfaction that comes out of that I did that. But I always feel that tradespeople don't necessarily get the recognition they deserve. They're just there, right?
Yep.
Your power goes, like my power went out this morning. A tree fell. I saw the linemen. They were working. Everyone gets annoyed. Oh, I can't plug my phone in. I can't do this. But it's the linemen who are on the bucket truck in the rain getting the power back on.
Right.
And you're like you said, like your heat goes out, your AC goes out. You just expect that someone's going to come over and fix it. But my concern is, and my worry, and could be RV world or anything else, is that are we going to wait 4 weeks for a plumber? Are we going to wait 4 weeks for an electrician? And is it going to be $100+ an hour for these individuals? It's great for the trades, but it's not great for the homeowner.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it goes. That's actually, as we started talking, we have a KPI that we call repair event cycle time, and that was a big driver of creating the RV Technical Institute. The amount of time that it takes your RV to be repaired was reaching just unacceptable levels. Now, it's not just having a trained technician, but it's a big part of it. Having parts available is also a piece of that. But the industry traditionally did not have the structure that it has now with the RV Technical Institute. The job I was given was to create a standardized, professionalized program similar to like ASC, in the auto world, that kind of thing, a nationally recognized credential for the purposes of making sure these technicians not only can fix things safely, but they fix them right the first time. And that's really what we've been doing, is just continue to ratchet that by certifying and training these folks so that you don't have to wait to have that family experience or that your rig's out of work for a while or not working.
I think what's very beneficial for the audience that's listening is that people they want to know, how much am I going to make, how long it's going to take, and is there a future for me? So if I was just getting in the world of RV and technical, that side of it, what does it look like day one? And from the span of obviously working how many years it takes, and what can I expect to make? And is there a ceiling on wages?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the fact, whether you're male or female, you're paid equally. It really, the first part I would answer that is, we created a career path. Okay, so we have 4 levels in our career path. Level 1 is about 40 hours of instruction. We call it the inspection level. You can go into any RV and you can validate that all the systems are working. In this program, you're going to learn Ohm's law. You're going to learn flow. You're going to learn some things about these different pieces within a house. If you encounter an issue, you may not be fully ready to repair that. So that's what level 2 gets into, which is another 3 to 4 weeks of instruction. So now you're up to about 120 hours. Level 1 and level 2 together both come with a certification. And at the completion of that, we are what we refer to as a competent technician. Okay. And I'll get to the compensation here in a second. As you go into level 3, we have 5 specialty areas, and each one of them has a certain amount of hours in it. At the completion of all those, you're then awarded the master, which is the highest level at the current time. An individual who's not working can actually work their way all the way through to a master as quickly as a year. If you're working or a career changer, it might take you a couple years to reach master. So that's the path. Is it a good career field? It is a very good career field, and it's a sustainable career field. You're always going to be continuing to learn. There's always going to be new innovation coming out, new technology. These rigs of the past are not the same ones of today. There's high-tech electrification systems on there. There's a lot of IT on these rigs today. So you're going to have a very successful and a sustainable career. As far as compensation, this is the best part, right? Everyone likes to say, do a job you love, but you still need to get paid for it. A level 1 technician, which I mentioned is that level 1 class, that is a $45,000 to $60,000 a year job. The best part is you can work for a dealership or you can work as a mobile tech. So we can talk about that here in a second, but there's really 2 different paths you can go with that. If you're a level 2, so now you've taken as additional hours, so about a month or so of education. Now you're in the 65 to 80,000 range. Once you hit master, very few masters are not over 6 figures. And so just like with any trade, the more you do it, the more you get experience, the faster you do things. But this career field has no ceilings. I like to use the example. I have a friend that lives near me in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. And he is a level 2 certified tech, and he took some electrical specialty, but he didn't even go through master, and that's fine. You don't have to do that. He works 3 days a week installing awnings at 2 campgrounds. These are very nice campgrounds, and makes $150,000 to $175,000 a year, 3 days a week.
Not bad.
Not bad. The technician career path, as I mentioned, there's over 2,000 dealerships out there that you can work for. At the same time, there's also this mobile tech direction you can go. So the mobile tech, some work for dealerships, some work out of campgrounds. Some people do it full-time. Some people do it as a side hustle. Whether you're young, whether you're older, once you become certified, once you know how to do repairs safely, all of these career paths are an option. Doesn't matter how old you are, what your gender is, what your diversity is, but it's and I think the best part too is even at the end of the day, if you decide to move on to something different, maybe you say I want to get into being an electrician even more. The things you have learned will save you money tenfold in a lifetime. Even just after level 1 class, if you don't become a technician, if your outlet goes out, you will be confident enough to go repair it versus having to call somebody out and pay $100 to $150 to get that done. So lots of opportunity and definitely very financially rewarding.
So in your world, there's no real apprenticeship.
Not as defined by the idea of becoming a journeyman and that kind of thing that you hear. No, I would like to say our industry is very innovative. I was brought in to create a school to train technicians, and we have chosen a path of allowing entrance into this where we're not going to put you through years of being the water boy carrier or anything of that nature. You're gonna come in, and you're gonna hopefully have a mentor that you're working under, but it's not an apprenticeship. The level 1, 2, 3, and 4, you can kind of call it that, but we do not call that. Those are just the levels in the career path. We do offer scholarships, though. There is the opportunity for scholarship. So, and if you choose to get into the field.
One thing I do hear, especially from people in the trades or people just starting out in the trades, and I'm talking about tens of thousands of people on TikTok and YouTube and a lot of people on LinkedIn, is that it's hard to get in for a lot of these companies because they want experience. What is it like in this world when it comes to a dealership?
Mm-hmm.
Is there like 20 people showing up for that one job, or just because there's not as many people in the industry, it's not as competitive?
Yeah. No, that's not the scenario. They don't have 20 people showing up for the job. I think the first challenge we have in our industry is just being aware of the fact that you can actually make a career in our industry that's like this. People, when they think of RVing, they immediately think of, yes, I understand what RVing is, and oh my God, like I'd love to do that, and we had so much fun. They forget that there's a career part of it, which is the service side. Obviously, you can get into sales as well too, but so I think that's part of what I've been doing in getting on shows like this and others, is to spread the word, like that this is a very sustainable career. It's a true path of many years of happiness and work. But so when you walk into a dealership, they're going to be very, very glad to see you. There is not a line to stand in, but there is most of the dealerships are training under our curriculum. So when this program was set up, we designed it so that the dealerships, you don't have to come to Elkhart, Indiana to take the class. You can actually do it at the dealerships because they are authorized learning partners and they have the curriculum, or they will put you through the education that we offer. So that's a path, and it's one I would recommend for somebody who may be whether not to discriminate to being young, but just being inexperienced. Maybe you don't have, maybe you were an accountant for years and you're like, I want to get into this. Maybe you started a dealership and you do a couple years and then either continue to grow with them, or maybe go out and become your own mobile tech.
What are some of the big ones out there? I'm thinking about like Camping World.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about the Prophet Marcus Lemonis. Is it Marcus
Lemonis? Yes.
Yes, because I used to watch The Prophet.
Yes.
And I know that he is, I don't know if he's still CEO.
He is.
I don't know if that's one of the largest out there.
It is the largest.
The largest.
They are hands down the largest, with over 200 plus locations. Right on their heels is a group called Blue Compass.
Yeah.
And so between those two, they are 100 plus basically. And then there's a large group. There's really not another one that's like 75 or 60. It goes down to like into the 30s. There's a couple there in the 30s. You've got General RV, Funtown, Bish's, things of Campers Inn. And then there's quite a few groups that have 2 or 3 locations. But the dealer side of the world, much like the manufacturing side, back in 08 and 09, which for those of you that remember those years, those were tough years for the economy in general. Sure. It was the housing crisis. The RV industry had its toughest years then too. There was a lot of consolidation that occurred. There was a lot of manufacturers. They consolidated and gave rise to really 3 very prominent, which is the Forest River, Thor, and Winnebago brands that make up a large portion of the RV industry. So if you can imagine, it's like only having GM and Ford and maybe one other. But underneath all of that is a large amount of different brands.
I would assume it's more of a luxury type of purchase for somebody who wants to buy an expensive RV. Where where are those price points? Because I want everyone to really understand like ranges of high end versus medium.
Sure.
The road.
So what somebody said to me a long time, and this is very true. The RV industry, there is an RV for any price point.
Yeah.
There really is. And so it can grow with you. So as your financial situation grows and you want more and bigger, there's something there for you. Entry level, in the neighborhood of 10 to 15,000, you can get into something. Where's that stop? In the millions, if you want to. For the most part, you've got 3 different models. You have an A, B, and C, and then there's a Super C and some different things that we add to it. The design is what really gives it and that's on the motorized side, A, B, and C. And then you have a toy hauler, and then you have a 5th wheel. There's some different varieties, and you lump those in there. I couldn't really tell you what an average would be, but I would say, luxury starts at probably the 50 plus range when you start getting into luxury, and can go up really to unlimited, whatever your pocketbook will allow or whatever your little heart desires.
Yeah. Well, I think about the ones that expand, right?
Are you talking about with the slide outs and things of that nature?
Yeah.
Yeah. A good majority of RVs out there now have slide outs to give you that extra room. They'll kind of slide in when you're getting ready to leave or you're traveling, and you can slide them out to give you a little more square footage.
I would imagine it's exciting to work on those, right? Those real expensive ones that you're putting something together that someone's going to enjoy, the work that you've put in.
Exactly.
So it must be fulfilling for somebody who's in that.
So if you were to
industry.
talk to a lot of the veteran technicians, one of the things, there's a couple reasons why you would want to do this career field and why they like it. The first one is just, if you're a person that does not like to do the same thing every single day, being an RV technician you might really like, because today you might be working on an air conditioner, tomorrow you might be working on a slide out, the next day you might be working on a chassis. And so they'll tell you that, unlike the auto world or diesel world where you work on engines all the time, I just work on engine, or I just work on brakes all the time, the RV tech can work on all these different facets. And so they like that. That's a big attraction for this career field. The other one is, as I mentioned, the mobile tech. There's a lot of mobile techs. Let's say you live in the north, and in the wintertime, you head down south and you hang out at a campground or two, and basically, every week you put a sign out that says, I'm a service tech, or this is my business, and you can work all winter long. And then in the wintertime you go back, or summertime you go back home, you do the same thing up north. So it's a very mobile field. We have a lot of traveling nurses. There's a lot of husband and wife teams, or brother and sister teams that travel around, and maybe one is a traveling nurse, for example. Or I had a really cool story the other day. One was a traveling nurse, and then her husband was a musician. And so they traveled around, and she went to nursing jobs and did her thing, and then he would just do local gigs. And so, it's a very there's a lot of different stories what people do, but once you get trained, you can fix a lot of your repairs, a good portion of them, just by being certified and taking the class, whether you're in the career field or not.
Someone who's mobile, what would they charge per hour?
That ranges quite a bit, but for the most part, if you go into a dealership, you're looking at between $150 to $200 an hour. That's what the dealership will charge.
Right.
An individual will push, over 100 to probably 125, 150 an hour also.
Okay, so you're making decent money, and like you said, if you're in that camping, and you're like the person,
you can be a knight on a shining armor very quickly.
Yeah, you get into a niche like that, and you do extremely well. I just want to shift off to the shortages for a quick second.
Sure.
We might have touched upon it, but what's the retirement look like for over the next 5 or 10 years in this world?
Yeah, it like I say, it really is equally compared to any other trade out there, electricians, plumbers, or what have you. A good 60% of our technicians are over the age of 35, and of course, every year that goes by, that's you're losing more and more of those folks, and backfill is not easy. The RV world really grew up on the back of the traditional. I grew up wrenching. My dad had, a barn, and I learned how to wrench with them. I believe you're a Corvette fan, if I'm not mistaken. So
I am.
Yeah,
I am. This might turn into a whole nother podcast.
Exactly. Well, I married a daughter of a 40-year GM guy, so that was the rule for marrying her. Is I had to get rid of my Toyota before, but yeah. So that group is aging out, and what I have tried to do in creating the whole career path is I don't want to lose that knowledge base, because that's some really good knowledge. But that group is being used to help mentor this younger group. So maybe you didn't grow up wrenching, which is the majority of folks now. But this aging out population, along with continued strong sales of new RVs and more people getting into it, remote work has definitely influenced the growth of our industry. And the more diversity that's going on is more people are being turned on to it. So sales combined with an aging out population, if you were to walk into any dealership right now, they're probably down 20 to 25% on technicians. If you ask them, well, we have 10, I need 12 or 13, because there's that much business.
Right, but there's got to be delays then, right? If I want X fixed on my RV, well, we don't have enough techs to fix it.
And we're making improvements on that, but we're far from getting it right. That's why we need more technicians.
Yeah. Are there any career changers that come in that not necessarily just start in the trades, but they're plumbers, they're welders? Do they shift over? Have you seen that into this trade?
I have, yeah. The electricians in particular mirror up best as a normal, like if you were to pick a trade and say which one mirrors best into this field, it's the electrician. And that's driven by the fact that 70+% of the issues you have on an RV are electrically related in some form or fashion. Next would be like plumbers, but HVAC techs. It's just a knowledge again of that this even exists out there. I think obviously electricians, plumbers are more defined, and though 8 million RVers out there sounds like a big number, in a country of 350 million plus, it's still very small compared to the amount of electricians and plumbers and things that you need. But you see it go both ways. You see some that come from there and say, you know what, my retirement is going to be, I'm going to buy an RV and I'm going to use what I've learned, but I'm going to become certified as a technician too. And that mirrors up very nicely for another career change if you wanted to.
Yeah, there are a lot of people who say, well, there's a certain point in the trades where you can't get into a weird position and weld, right?
Right.
Like I'm too old for that.
Yes.
I'm
yes.
whatever, 50 plus, whatever you want to say that age is. But in electrician, or if you're a welder, you can move into the office, right? You can be a foreman, you can be a supervisor, you can be an estimator. But in this world, you don't necessarily, you could still stay within this.
Yeah, and I don't think, depending on if you're a mobile tech situation or if you're in a dealership, of course there is a path of getting into like being a service manager or an office desk job if you're at a dealership. In the mobile world, our career field it's demanding on the body, but not at the extensiveness of what you're not crawling into too many tight spots. When you think about an RV, it's pretty much a box most of the time. People will say the worst part of the RV is obviously the dump tank. Sure. Yeah, and there's actually a job out there. There's folks that's what they do for their living because people just don't want to do it. But beyond that, you're not getting real greasy. You're not. You might, if you crawl under an RV, a lot of times they're high enough up that you don't really need. Depending on what you're doing under there, but. I would say it's less demanding than a lot of the trade jobs out there, but it is still physical. And sometimes you're working out in the elements, If you're working at a dealership, obviously you have the luxury of pulling it in and you're not in the elements. But maybe, myself, as I get older, I don't like being as cold as I used to be. So maybe I transition to working for a dealership so I can be inside where it's a little cooler or warmer. But I would challenge that our career field is not quite as demanding on the body as some trades. So maybe you get a few extra years in the normal trades.
That makes sense. I feel that the trades has a PR problem across the board.
Agreed.
It just,
Agreed.
those still old adages are still there. You always hear that the person is the plumber's crack, the guy, the big guy with the big belly,
Yeah.
right? All those old adages. If you're not a good student, right, you're the C-level student, there's always, you can always be a tradesperson. But I think overall that's changing.
I agree.
With trade school up about 16% the last couple of years, with Wall Street Journal articles being written by Tai-Ping Chen, if I'm saying that correctly, is a reporter, and she's coming out with some really great articles where she coined Gen Z the tool belt generation. That kids are looking at college, kids are looking at trade school and saying, you know what, college is really doesn't give the return on investment that it once was. And I can go and do this trades thing that I don't have to go into debt. And I can start making money right away. And you can pick and choose whatever trade that you want to get into. And this is, it's highly desirable given the amount of technicians that are needed out there and the money that you can make. So there seems to be a lot of opportunity out there. What is the miss when it comes to this industry? What needs to be done from a PR perspective?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with that image. Unfortunately, still out there, and when you're battling it every day, I can only kind of give like a scenario in our world. So we charge $630. That's all we charge to become a level 1 and level 2 technician. I mentioned to you a level 2 technician who walks into a dealership today is going to start at $65,000 to potentially $70,000, depending on where you're at in the country. If you go to a traditional route of school, right out of the gate, and I don't know what is the number. I've seen a lot of numbers, but let's say it's $25,000, $30,000 a year. You're already in the hole, whereas you're making that money year one. You're already at that kind of money, and it just starts multiplying. So yeah, the ROI, I don't think there's anybody that can challenge the return on your investment of doing a trades route. And it goes back to, and I also believe some of the stereotype that we fight against in the trades, that's changing as well too, because technology and things are affecting trades as well. There's the trades of the past. My grandfather, my dad, I would say the trades were harder back then than they are today, because technology has afforded us ways to do some of the work without getting so demanding on your body or whatever the case is.
I want to go back. You mentioned about technology, and I'm thinking about a VR experience. And I had a chance to do this a few different times. So I'm going down next month to Skills USA. I don't know if you know what that show is. So
yes.
The people who are listening or watching who don't know about Skills USA, they take 6,500 of the best kids, and they compete against each other. I'm going down there. I'm going to do a lot of media and my podcast down there. So I'm super excited to go down there the second time. But you watch these kids light up of what they're doing with their hands. And it's amazing for potential employers to find the best of the best, that they actually go down there and they sort of pick those the best out there. But that's where the trades shine in those type of events, those type of shows and things like that. But if you've never been down there, you have to go down there. It's super exciting to see those kids compete against each other, and what they do with their hands. They weld. Some of them have to build a structure within 2 days, and it's like 4 people on a team. And I'm like, you're just looking at a blueprint, and all of a sudden they're trying to build it in 2 days and they're being judged. It's just it's unreal to see that.
Yeah, no, I've been there myself a few times in a prior life, and I've actually been there quite a few times, going back about 10 years, and it has grown. That's another example that just shows you the growth of that. Being able to be a presenter or be able to be a school to be in it used to be pretty easy. It's tougher now. It's tougher to get in. It's tougher to, and I that's a good thing. That's a good thing because it's complementing the fact that trades are, kind of getting sexy again, and that's kind of what you want it to do. So I agree. It's a good time.
I've walked in many schools and vocational schools, and they have the Skills USA, like somebody won. It's like a badge of honor. It's a badge of honor. And when you speak to whoever is running that particular side of the shop class or whatever they're doing, they light up and they're like, yeah, our student went down there and they got second place. And it's really great to see that.
What a great resume builder, right? Or just
it's like the Olympics.
It is.
Yeah. It's really exciting to see where the trades are going. And this is sort of a great option for somebody that wants to get into this side of the business. And it's not expensive to get in. Because I'm thinking about college, but I'm also thinking about trade school. Because if you want to get into trade school, there's an investment there, but it's not as much anywhere near what a college path is. So if you're getting in and you could start making $60,000 in the first, you said 1 year.
Oh yeah, within the first
1 year. Is there any advice for somebody who is going into a dealership and wants to interview? Are there any sort of things that you can help them with, in a sense, like prep them for an interview for this type of work? What would you recommend?
Yeah. Obviously, highlighting any experience you have in other trades, whether you've been in, whether you're your first time or you've been in some other trade before, highlighting any military experience and maybe some of the tech training you've had through that. If you're walking into a dealership, they're going to look for not just those hard skills or like you've been in trades. They're also going to look at your professional etiquette. They're going to look at your customer skill set. Common things. Did you show up on time? Be there on time. Ask questions. Be excited about the idea of being a service technician or working for that dealership. I can't believe how many times I hear that piece is just lacking. They don't even get a chance to talk about their very good technical skills. It's just they lack some of the professional etiquette that they might be looking for because there is customer interaction. And so part of, I mentioned the RV Women's Alliance earlier, they're building in additional training just around the customer service piece because the soft skills, they're still very much in demand. How to say thank you, how to look somebody in the eye, some of the things that, I learned old school with parents. They taught me that. So not everyone's had the fortune of that. So now schools and we do the same thing. We try to teach some of those soft skills as well. But to walk into a dealership with the interest and motivation, desire to do the job will get you somewhere as well. But if you have any experience of building, or maybe you're part of Skills USA, or you walk in with your trophy or your ribbon, those are definitely going to help you.
We don't realize on the soft skills side, because obviously it's any industry, but like the soft skills, like stay off your phone.
Yeah, exactly.
Show up early, stay late. These are basic things, but not everybody can follow that. But what I find is that if you can do the soft skills side, obviously have the tech side, the company, kids don't really understand, like the owner sees that. And they pick you out of a bunch and say, this person we can invest in.
Yeah.
Because the hardest thing in the trades, one thing is to hire and find people. It's the retention.
Yes.
The retention. I always preach this, like take care of your people. Invest in your people.
That's a very good one. That's so, you can go from dealership to dealership, and your most successful dealerships will have really good hands-on leaders that value their technicians. And you can walk into a very poorly performing one and wonder why they have turnover in the technician job, or why is it that Johnny and Susie and Sally all went across the street to XYZ. No different than a lot of businesses, right? It's, show up and be there and perform well. But I also want to, rest some people's worries. The nice thing about our industry too is even if you don't have anything on your resume, you don't have, any trades or any of that nature, that's okay. If you do some of those soft skills, you present well, maybe, you ask to be shadow or something at a dealership. The program, that dealership will train you, and they'll use the curriculum we have. As I mentioned earlier, a lot of these dealerships have the RVTI curriculum. And so whether they put you through there at their dealership or send you to Elkhart, for example, or you do it online, because we have all the options of learning. You can do it online, in person, a hybrid through what we call authorized learning partner. As I mentioned, we're trying to teach it in the schools so that, when you come and start at a dealership, you can come out with a certification already. So we're trying to cover all bases, but entry into it is pretty easy. And whether you've grown up wrenching or you haven't, or if you know the difference between a flat head and a Phillips head, that's okay. We'll teach you.
And I wanted to bring back the VR experience. Are you doing anything VR with the goggles?
We are not currently. The challenge we have is because of working with a lot of these dealerships and things of that nature is we can bring and have the technology, but they don't. So it makes it a little difficult to be able to do the remote. We are investigating a lot of the AI that is coming out because I do believe AI will have a place, especially in troubleshooting things of that nature. It will not replace the good old face-to-face, though. I mean, I think we talked about that earlier, and this is just Curtis Hemmeler speaking, but I've read some things and seeing some things that this newer generation, I'm talking the kids that are in high school now, I think for a generation or two now, we've seen some of the positives of technology, but we've also seen a lot of the negatives. And I think there's going to be some resistance or maybe some returning back to the good old face-to-face. Just like I came in here to meet with you face-to-face today versus doing it remotely. I would prefer this, you would prefer this, and I think there's that people connection that maybe we'll get back to a little bit more.
That connection point of being face-to-face, is you can't replace that. I'm 100% agreement with you. But on the VR side, just going back when I was talking about Skills USA, there's a couple companies that do it. Interplay is one of them. Transfer is another one. There's a few others out there. And I had the chance to put on the VR goggles, and I was a lineman. And all of a sudden I was climbing a pole, and I'm about 50, 60 feet up, and I'm looking down, and it felt to some degree that I was real. Right. And I was put in a sort of like a pressure point cooker, like right. I got to put the power back on because the hospital needs power. And I felt as if like it was the pressure of actually being a lineman. Right. And, I did the work on that I had to do and got it back on. It was exciting, but it was also just in a VR experience. Sure. It won't replace working directly, obviously, on the lines, but it can get at least kids interested. That's why I like the VR.
That's a good point. That's
in an elementary school or a middle school that a kid goes down. That kid is, exposed to.
Because they'd still like tech, and anything you can put in tech. I agree. That's a very good point. We're not using it in curriculum or anything at this point. Doesn't mean we won't, but yeah. But our bigger challenge, as I mentioned, was when we were trying to use it in a training format. It is because we work so hand in hand with remotely with other folks. Is technology didn't match up as well to be able to provide the experience, and the cost factor was a little high too.
Is there anything else in the RV world that we didn't cover that would make sense to the audience?
I think just a couple things. One being is, and I mentioned this to you earlier, and I did not come from the RV industry. I've had the fortune of being in it for the last 6 years and building the RV Institute. But a lot of folks, when you think about the RV service career field or the technician, they immediately jump to the idea of think of an auto or diesel tech. And I try to, explain it, it actually is not that. It's the house part. So it's more aligned to trades. So I think that'd be the first thing is be careful not to automatically jump to the idea of thinking of an auto or a diesel tech. The second one is just sitting here and talking about the RV industry as a whole, that a lot of people don't know that this is a career field. And I just want to reemphasize, yes, you can have a very successful, enjoyable, you can, combine work with family. That's what we're based on, is the family memory experience. That's why most people do RVing. They love it because they're making memories. And so, our career field allows you to make sure make sure that folks continue to have that experience. So they don't want to be interrupted with an air conditioner or a slide out that won't go back in. So, that would be what I would add. It's a great career field.
Well, yeah, I mean, and personally, I didn't really know much about the field. So you've filled in sort of the gaps of, what the opportunities are, the money that could be made. If people want to go down and find more information about your institute,
Sure.
social media, where do they go?
So you want to go to www.rvti.org. So it's rvti.org. We are the only industry credential out there in the RV industry, and our curriculum was designed and built by the manufacturer suppliers that actually build these RVs. So that gives us we are the standard of the industry. So, but yeah, that's where you go check out. That's where you'll see all the different manufacturers, the folks that are involved, how to get involved. If you want to take classes, if you want to get employed, we have a whole jobs board. So if you see some place that you would like to work, and just let us know. Check us out.
Yeah, definitely check it out. And at some point I will make it over there.
You have an open invite. We'll even get you certified.
Even better.
There you go.
Even better. Well, Kurt, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for coming out, and thank you for telling us more about the RV technician world. And we need more RV techs, and I think we'll get there with putting out the word like we're doing today.
And thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to expand and keep doing your good work, man. We got to spread the good word on the skilled trades for sure.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.